Section 2.1 is parallel lines and transversals. So you should be able to identify the relationships between two lines or two planes and name angles formed by a pair of lines and a transversal. All right, so our definitions today, not too many. First is parallel lines, and this is something that should not be new to you. So parallel lines are just lines that do not intersect. Okay, we're adding, since we've learned what coplanar is, we're going to say coplanar lines that do not intersect because they have to be on the same plane. Parallel planes are planes that do not intersect. So think of your ceiling and your floor. They are parallel, they will not touch, and they just keep going on forever. I'm going to back up just a little bit. These little triangles here, in case you're unfamiliar with them, sometimes they look like a triangle like that. Sometimes you'll just see like some little lines. I don't know why that's moving. In your problem, let's see there, I got it. Sometimes you just see them to show that those are parallel, okay? Skew lines. This is probably the hardest one for students to grasp because it's hard to picture. So they're lines that do not intersect and they're not coplanar. So if I were to look at, these are two planes here off to the right, okay, two different planes, and the lines are in two different planes. So if I were to look at them from the top, it might look like they're intersecting. But until we get to the side view, we can see, oh, they're not intersecting because they're not in the same plane. So they'll never touch each other to intersect. And transversal, that's the second part of what we're going to do today. It's a line that intersects two or more lines in a plane, that should say, at different points. So in a plane at different points. The transversals in this case are the red lines. All right, so the transversals are the red lines there. The lines could be parallel that they're intersecting, but they don't necessarily have to be. All right, so let's take a look at our first example to see some of these words in action. It says, use the figure to the right to answer the following questions. Name all planes that are parallel to AEF. All right, so AEF, that is this plane over here. So if we're thinking about this as a box, this is the one that's to the left of the box. So what's going to be parallel to the left side of the box? Well, that's the right side of the box. So it's going to be plane BCHG. Okay, so it's the right side of the box. Let me highlight that one so you can see. Those are the two parallel planes. All right, part B says name all segments that intersect AF. So AF is here, and I'm going to extend it past so we can see. So segments that intersect that. Well, I can see right away that FG, well, that didn't change colors. Excuse me. FG intersects it. BA intersects it. AD intersects it. And FE intersects it. I'm going to stop for a second and double check. Do any of the other lines touch or intersect my yellow line that I don't have highlighted? And the answer is no. All right, here's the sort of tricky one. Erase this. It's name all segments that are skew to AD. All right, so skew to AD. So that's that edge. So they can't be in that same plane. We do not want them to be parallel. So the first thing I see is EH. That's not in the same plane. That's the back edge of the box. So I'm going to put EH down. While I'm going with EH, EC is in a different plane because that's in the bottom plane. So that one's not going to touch it. If I have that one going up, this one won't touch it, and this one won't because they're all in different planes. So that was GB. and FG. Oh, and I see one I missed. So HC will not. And we also don't want ones that are parallel to it. Okay, because in order for them to be parallel, that means they're going to be in the same plane. All right, so I think that's all of them. All right, let's move on to example 2. This will probably be your least favorite of the day because it seems a little bit weird, but it's just having you recognize what a transversal is. So it says some of the bus station's driveways are shown. Identify for part A the sets of lines to which V is the transversal. So if here's V, we have to name those sets of lines. So V could be a transversal. There's actually a whole lot here. It could be to W and U. Highlight these in another color. And you know what? We might just, instead of, I don't typically do it that way. I'll do it the way I typically do it. So W, U, it's going to touch both of those. We could do X and Z because Z will eventually continue and intersect V. So X, Z. Will it ever intersect with Y? Nope. So it looks like that's it. All right, for part B, now they want which sets of lines transversal to Y. So for Y, we want W, could be W and U together. It could be Z and X together, or any combination. It could be W and Z, U and X, any of that. The only one it can't go is V, because it's parallel to that. All right, and finally part C, it says identify the sets to which Y is the transversal. I want to make sure we already have Y. All right, so let me do U here. Sorry, U is the one I want. So I'm going to extend it because it does have arrows on it. All right, so U, pretty much anything that's not W, because W is the one that's parallel. So it could go with V and X, or V and Y, or V and Z. So let me just write all those letters down. Okay, so just picking out a transversal and which lines is it going to be crossing. All right, the next part is actually what I think is the fun part. It's one of my favorite things in geometry, and it's talking about parallel lines and transversals. When we have parallel lines and transversals, there's lots of different angles that are formed. So if you just even look over to this picture to the right, the transversal I'll highlight in yellow. The other two lines are not necessarily parallel, but they're just two lines there. Tomorrow we'll look at more of, I say tomorrow, the next lesson we will look more of at what happens when they're parallel. But if you notice, just by 3 lines intersecting, we have 8 different angles. And there's a couple relationships, or a few relationships between them. So I will try to highlight them as we go. So exterior angles is one of them. Exterior, think of outside. So outside, we're talking about anything outside those lines. So 1, 2, 7, and 8, they're all exterior angles because they are outside the lines. Interior angles are anything inside them. So anything inside these lines. So 3, 4, 5, and 6, they're all inside the lines. All right, that's really going to help us because the relationships we find talk about interior and exterior angles. So consecutive interior angles. Think about consecutive as like in counting order, okay? Sort of side by side. So interior, they're going to be on the inside here. Consecutive sort of means they're side by side on the inside. So, and they're on the same side. And sometimes they're called same side interior. Okay, I've also seen them called that. So 3 and 6 are the first set. And then 4 and 5 are the second set. Okay, those are called consecutive interior angles, is what we'll refer to it as, but it could also be called same side interior because they're on the same side. The next one we're going to look at is alternate interior. So alternate interior, like if I'm counting, if you guys were in the classroom, I would be sitting here and say, okay, if I'm going to alternate calling on people from side to side, I would call on somebody on the right side, then the left side, then the right side, then the left side. There would be this imaginary line down the center that I would sort of be pivoting off of, going back and forth. So think of that as the transversal is what's separating us into our sides so that way we can alternate. So let me erase these so you have a little bit more clarity. Alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior. So they're outside. So 1, 2, 7, 8. Those are my outside angles. But I need them to alternate. So I'm going to do 1, and 1 matches with 7. Because see how 1 is on the left side of my transversal and 7's on the right side. Okay, but they're alternate exterior. The other set of alternate exterior angles is 2 and 8. Okay, so those are the other set of alternate exterior. Opposite sides of the transversal, outside. Our next set is alternate interior. So the same thing as alternate exterior, but they're in between those two lines. So 3 is on the right side. So I need something on the left side that's also inside. So 3 and 5 go together. And then that leaves 4 and 6 to go together for alternate interior. All right, the last one we're looking at right now is corresponding angles. So corresponding angles mean they're in the same location. So different lines, but the same location. So an example, let's start with just angle 1. Angle 1, if I'm looking at these 4 angles, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is in the top left. So if I look at these 4 down here, the top left is 5. So 1 and 5 are corresponding angles because they're in the same location. 2 and 6, because they're both in the top right, they go together. 3 and 7, because they're both in the bottom right. And last but not least, we have 4 and 8, because they're both in the bottom left. All right, so it's really going to take some practice for you guys to get to know these, understand them, and just get used to all the positions. So let's go ahead and take a look at example 3. Oh, sorry. I'm on my eraser, that's why it won't work. All right, so you can see right now that my angles have disappeared. So all of these are angles. All right, so use the figure to the right to classify each set of angles below. First one is 3 and 7. So angle 3 is here, angle 7 is here. So 1, I'm going to ignore line C right now. You can't see it. Well, let me see if I can do this. Let me change this one. Here's what I'll do. All right, so we're just going to ignore C for now because 3 and 7 have nothing to do with C. And it gets a little confusing. So you can either cover it with your hand or put white out over it. So 3 and 7, they're on the same side, but one is inside, one is outside. So they're not consecutive interior. So that must mean that they are corresponding. The next one is angle 8 and angle 2. Right away I see they're on opposite sides, so I'm thinking alternate, so I'm going to go ahead and write that down. I usually abbreviate it ALT. Now ask yourself, are they inside those two lines or are they outside those two lines? For this one, they're outside, so they're alternate exterior. All right, now 4 and 11, so I need to bring the bottom back up. 4 is here, 11 is here. So that means I can ignore everything here in the middle if it's confusing to you. 4 and 11. They're on the same side, but one's inside, one's outside, so therefore they are corresponding again. They are both in the bottom left corner. All right, 7 and 1. I'm going to leave all the lines up now. So 7 and 1. So they're opposite sides of line L, which is the transversal. So they're alternate, but are they interior or exterior? So if I'm just looking at lines A and B, they're outside, so they're alternate exterior again. All right, now what do we have? 3 and 9. So there's 3, there's 9. Again, opposite sides. I will cover that up again. Opposite sides. Oh, but look, they're between my lines A and C now. So this time they are alternate interior angles. Okay, alternate interior angles. All right, the last one is 7 and 10. So 7 is there, 10 is there. Hey, they're side by side and inside the lines, so those are our consecutive interior. Okay, consecutive interior.